Hey, this is the World Advice Channel, and what I want to talk about today is the problem with Pierre Poilievre, which, of course, if you're someone who's not Canadian, you don't know who he is, but if you're someone who's Canadian, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Who, of course, as we all know, is a leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Now, I just want to mention here for this video, I'm not really the biggest fan. I'm not a big fan of Justin Trudeau either, but I'm also definitely not a fan of Pierre Poilievre. So the truth of the matter is, due to the fact that I'm not a fan of any of the two, you will get a very good, straightforward answer without any real political bias. So if you're expecting any political bias, you're not going to get it here, and you will be disappointed. So I'm going to speak the honest truth about him. I do not like this guy, and I'll speak the honest truth in a straightforward way so anyone can understand. So anyway, let's get started. So when it comes to Pierre Poilievre, let's talk about what the problem with Pierre Poilievre is, the leader of the Canadian Conservative Party. The simple problem with Pierre Poilievre is two main things. Actually, three main things is the problem with Pierre Poilievre. The first one, when it comes to to him, before I get to the last one, which will cover healthcare, is that the problem with Pierre Poilievre is that he's simply a typical conservative, as as which you can kind of see why so many people of color historically have never been interested in being conservatives, and even now they're still having issues getting a lot of black people to go conservative, and people of darker skin colors or racialized communities to go conservative. Now, the first reason is simply down to the basic common sense reason: racism. Now, when it comes to Pierre Poilievre, do we have any videos of him saying anything racist, this and that? No, but you can clearly tell, as usual, he's a racist. And the truth of the problem with him is that he simply, in general, hasn't done anything to make people of groups, racialized groups, like him. He's just a typical conservative who spews the same stuff, such as let's ask for more police to go around, the streets looking for, of course, you know, a lot, to be honest with you, black people particularly, to give them a hard time, which the police have historically that they're very racist, which is one thing he's definitely a supporter of: more policing, which will just cause more problems. And a lot of his policies, he just simply hasn't done a good job. And obviously, the elephant in the room here, he hasn't called out all the numerous conservatives who, even in a span of 2 years, have said very racist stuff, and in general, to go alongside that fact, hasn't confronted a race issue in the Conservative Party. He is a typical conservative. You can tell he's racist, but he's a smart one. He's racist, but he's not going to say it publicly. Okay? That's the truth of the matter. And I'm not one of those silly SJW type people who just call people racist because, simply put it, oh well, you know, um, oh well, he apparently apparently a black person came up to him, he wanted to shake his hand and he didn't shake his hand. I'm not one of those goofy people, okay? I'm just simply spewing the facts. He's just simply done the same thing they have done historically that have caused problems with the black community in particular, and other communities, but particularly the black community. When it comes to the problem they obviously have with the police, you know, with the police, and he hasn't really dealt with those issues. It's the same old crap you hear all the time, and he hasn't really done anything. So that's the first problem with him. He simply supports policies that enforce racism, and alongside it, he hasn't called out the racism in the Conservative Party. So that's for one. The second thing to go alongside that fact is also the truth about Pierre Poilievre is that he simply hasn't really resolved issues relating to things like climate change. Now, climate change is like anything in the world. When it's a issue, when it's a serious issue, whether you believe it or not, you want to at least take it seriously using common sense here. Because if you don't take it seriously, next thing you know, you realize, oh crap, it's real. Now you obviously now screwed. It's just like, for example, if you have a doctor, okay, who comes up to you and says, okay, we think you might have this condition or this and that, we're not certain of it, even if he says a probability is like 10, 20%, you have it, you want it using common sense, you would obviously realize I'm gonna do my best to take the advice of what this doctor is gonna say, because obviously down to common sense. If he tells me something like, for example, cut down this food and this and that, even if the probability is 20, 10%, it'll increase the chance I'll get something. I'll be smart enough to actually, of course, well, do that, especially if obviously the condition is life threatening. So when it comes to an issue like climate change, how is it any different? And that's a question, obviously, conservatives are never willing to answer. They're always willing to debunk it and say it's just simply used by the globalists and this and that, blah, 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 blah. You know, but the question that obviously they still are not willing to answer is what if it is real? They haven't been willing to answer this question. It's the same old, same old, same old. Talk around the situation instead of simply using common sense and realizing, okay, what do we have to lose from trying to develop things like electric cars and renewable energy that can obviously using common sense, even if it's useless, it's still good. Not to mention it obviously is free energy, so you don't have to worry about running out of things like fossil fuels. So you don't have to. So you have a energy source that's infinite. Okay, so not just using common sense. In all honesty, it's probably real. It's probably real. And even if it's not real, you don't want to take chances. So why is he saying, "Oh, it's not real"? Especially when the fact that you come here in Canada, particularly Southern Ontario, you don't even see any snow. Just in 2023, we had a green winter. How the hell are you telling me out of the 1,000 years, I can guarantee you from the year 1,000 to 2,000 to 2000 AD, of course, which was 24 years ago at this point, we haven't had a single winter that has been green, especially on that exact day known as Christmas to us. And how are you going to tell me we haven't had that before, but somehow climate change is simply fake? Okay, and that's the thing they're never willing to answer. And so that goes to show you one thing right there. It is real. And even if it's not, you want to take precautions. And that's another thing. Now, to get to the last one, obviously the issue of healthcare. When it comes to healthcare, this is another issue he has consistently shown he clearly doesn't know what he is doing. Okay? He actually is trying to make healthcare something that you have to pay for, which has constantly been debunked. Okay? Because the problem with trying to make healthcare paid for is what happens to all the people who who don't have free healthcare, who are, in other words, people who can't afford it. If someone cannot afford free healthcare, then obviously, especially in a day and age where inflation is so bad, then how are people going to get good quality healthcare at all? What are they going to do if they cannot afford it? What, we're going to have people on the street just lying down, dying from the medical condition? And that's a question they're never willing to answer. Okay, and when you ask people about this stuff, it's always the same freaking thing. For same freaking thing all the time. The same thing. I'm entitled to my opinion, in my opinion, in my opinion, in my opinion, instead of actually realizing that it doesn't make any sense. It's never made any sense, and it never will make any sense. Having a paid healthcare system would be a travesty for Canada, especially taking into consideration using common sense. I'd rather have to stay all day in a certain place, if anything, than have to be tens of thousands of dollars in debt and on the verge of going homeless. Just down to common sense here. So why? So what do you think is? So what do you think is obviously a better choice? Okay, because that's always argument they make. Oh, it's too long to stay in the place. To get your stuff resolved. But why does that matter? You'd rather have a problem with spending 10 to 15 hours getting a procedure that will save your life, Or do you want to be tens of thousands in debt and still have the same condition that gives you the same level of pain and be on the street? That's what they never want to answer. And that's the problem with Pierre Poilievre. He supports paid for healthcare, which will just screw things up more than it already has screwed things up. So that's the problem with him. He will make a horrible MP. He's not a good MP. He would make a horrible prime minister, whatever you like to say. And hopefully he never gets to the position of power. I know Justin Trudeau sucks, but he's definitely not a better alternative. Anyway, aside from that, this is my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this video, thumb this video up and hit the subscribe button. And that's all I have to say. And simply put it, later.